to note a new life-changing history. Technology must advance humanity. ITS, Institute Technology, 10 November.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution.
Lihat.
All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the guest lecture series on SDGs today, Tuesday, March 17, 2022. I'm Vivian Anggreni from ITS Global Engagement and will be your master of ceremony and moderator this afternoon. Thank you for joining guest lecture series on SDGs today. Before we start our agenda, let me inform you some rules for this event today. First, please adjust your name or ID screen using format name _ your campus name. The second, during the lecture, please turn off your microphone and only turn on the microphone when the moderator gives the chance. Third, please fill your attendance link at attendance_GLS. Our committee also sent the attendance link through the Zoom chat room. For the participant who wish to get a certificate and stamp, please fill the attendance 15 minutes after the session starts. Fourth, the participant who wish to ask question during question and answer session, please send your question at bit.ly/GLSQNA/2. The link for question listed on the chat room as well. Or you can ask directly by using the raise hand feature. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will have 3 speakers from 3 different countries that will represent their expertise and research related to SDGs 9 and 11. Before we start our agenda, allow me to deliver schedule today as follows. First, we have opening and introduction to speaker. The second, lecturer session. Third, question and answer session. Fourth, certificate awarding. Fifth, closing. Now, before we proceed to the next agenda, let me introduce you our first speaker today. Our speaker today is Professor Kenji Mishima from Fukuoka University. His education began in 1986 as a Doctor of Engineering in Himeji Institute of Technology. His working experience as the Professor of Chemical Engineering and also Director of Composite Material Research Center. His research area in superficial subparticle fluid technology, nanotechnology, and microsolution. He also has the research grant in Holtzapfel Research Grant on environmentally banning production of material using chemical process. I would like, without further ado, I would like to pass the mic and I'm inviting Professor Kenji. Hello, Professor Kenji.
Hi.
Yeah, how are you, Professor Kenji?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kenji. I would like to give the mic for you. You can deliver your lecture today, Professor Kenji. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start my presentation. May I share my presentation PowerPoint?
Sure.
Okay. I will start this slide. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, I can start my presentation. Sorry for waiting. Today's my topic is high pressure technology and innovative for the SDGs. I'm a professor of the Department of Chemical Engineering. And also, I'm a director of the Center of International Program of Fukuoka University and the head of the Composition Material Center of Fukuoka University and director of School of Japanese Language and Cultures for the International Student Fukuoka Universities. First of all, I want to introduce Fukuoka University. Fukuoka is located here. Okay. Here, and Surabaya is here. It's very close, only the 8-hour flight. And also Fukuoka University is located on the Kyushu Island. Kyushu Island is the west part of the Japan. And also Fukuoka City located the north part of the Kyushu Island. And Fukuoka University is one of the hugest university in the Kyushu Island. And our university have 9 faculty of undergraduate school and 9 graduate schools and 4 university hospitals. Today's topic is high pressure technologies and innovative for the SDGs. First of all, I must explain about as population growth. As population grows in the particular place in the increasing pressures to the planet resources such as water. Half of the world of the population is already experiencing several water scarcity. 4 billion people, that's how many people live in the area, and with severe water scarcity at least a month a year. Research just published in the Science Advances. Further, when the water gets scarce, water intensive goods becomes more expensive to produce and economy pay off through the high water imports. Virtual water is a concept advantage to the professor Anthony Brown to University of London in 1990s. According to this concept, virtual water is a water that is not actual water used indirectly, but is not used indirectly and invisible. For example, to get 1 kilogram of beef or 1 cattle needs from 6 to 20 kilogram of the hay to produce that much as amount of the hay. We need 15,485 liters of the water. Therefore, it takes more than 15,000 liters to produce just 1 kilogram of beef. The largest use of the groundwater is not to irrigate to the crops in US. Profit of the spring the irrigation of the system that moisture to the grain fields. Each pump handles to the liter of the water per minute from the Olgaga aquifers. Olga aquifer is located beneath the great plants in the United States. It is one of the world of the largest aquifer. It's underlying the area of the approximate 174,000 square to the kilometers. However, as you can see, a large scale of irrigation water was causing the Olga aquifer being developed at a rapid speed. So we should check the amount of the virtual waters. Japan should be considered about these problems. So our Japanese already produced a new system at the industrial scale using a high pressure technique. Today, I want to explain about the importance of the fresh water because our people can use only the fresh water. We have a huge amount of the water, but it's including seawater and fresh waters. The percentage of the fresh water is very little. And also the usable fresh water is more little, almost if we consider the Earth as 1.5 meter, the model, only the water can use only 2 liters, but it's including seawater and fresh water. And also the fresh water is only a cup of tea. So, and it's including the ice, all of the ice. So the people can use only a spoonful available water. It's a very little. So I want to show the very routine system, but this system is a very efficient and comfortable system to obtain the water. You can use several methods to obtain the fresh water from the seawater, such as evaporation. But evaporation needs a huge amount of the energy, or the oil, to burning and heat up. But in this method, we don't need a huge amount of the energy. We can only using pressure, using a high pressure technique. For example, please check this slide. This slide shows the osmosis. Reverse osmosis method is used for the desalination system. When the fresh water and seawater are placed in a container separated by the semi-permeable membrane, water molecule pass through the semi-permeable membrane and flow into the seawater side. This is called osmosis phenomena. Second slide shows the pressure corresponding to the water level difference caused by the osmotic phenomena is called osmosis pressures. When the pressure higher than the osmotic pressure is applied to the seawater side, water molecule flow from the seawater side to the water side through the semi-permeable membrane. This phenomena is called reverse osmosis. Then the reverse osmosis system is created fresh water from the seawater based on this principle. in Japan, in Fukuoka City, we can apply this technology, this equipment. This chemical plant is very useful and efficiency is very high. So we can obtain the fresh water from the seawater with this chemical plant. This chemical plant called reverse osmosis systems. We don't use any toxic organic solvent or the toxic materials, only use the pressure. The pressure technique is very useful and safety. And I can show the some large in-situ water desalination plant in the Japan situated in Fukuoka. When you visit the Fukuoka city, I can show this plant. Okay, and this technique was improved every day, so we can obtain the more new technology using a high pressure technique. And also today I can show some application of high pressure technique to obtain the more good products, such as using the carbon dioxide. The absolute carbon dioxide amount is most important material because we are very careful about the some weather disasters. So we should apply or develop the new application technique of carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide is a very important material for the green chemistry. Because more 13 billion pounds of the organic and halogenated solvent used worldwide each year. Much more water is used and containing in the related processes. Carbon dioxide offers the effective alternatives. It's a very good point. Non-toxic, because carbon dioxide is non-toxic and inexpensive and relatively safe for the human being. And it has a mild critical point. 31 degrees, very close to the human temperature. And byproduct from the production of the ammonia and hydrogen is processes natural gas, easily separated, recycled. So the carbon dioxide is a very useful material. And this property is a chemical point. I can show the, some property of the carbon dioxide. Do you know the word of the supercritical condition of carbon dioxide? It's a very hot point to all over the world in the science, because carbon dioxide is normally gas. But the low temperature, it's liquefied at this point, and increasing pressure, you can obtain the more huge amount of the liquid of carbon dioxide. This liquefaction is occurred at low temperature. But when you heated up the carbon dioxide more than critical temperature, 32, you cannot obtain the liquefaction. Only carbon dioxide existed as a gas, but this gas has a high density gas and very functional properties. And we can apply this technology to the many fields. And I have developed some technology to the nanotechnology or the high advanced materials using this supercritical technologies. This is also industrialized processes. Supercritical carbon dioxide can extract some natural product from the plant, such as caffeine from the coffee bean. These processes only use the pressure. We don't use heat or evaporation, not using some oil or the coal or the energies. The very low energy, we can produce the pure caffeine product from the natural plant coffee beans using high pressure carbon dioxide. This process was called extraction. This extraction is already industrialized in some countries. And also, I have developed a new production system using carbon dioxide to produce the new dyeing system. In routine system, dyeing were used in the organic solvent or the toxic somethings. But in this system, we don't use any toxic organic solvent. So we don't exhausted any other toxic solvents to the environment. This system is only use the carbon dioxide as a solvent. So we can dye the clothes with carbon dioxide. This is a map of my research. First of all, I can develop on the laboratory scale, and I designed some pilot plant, the flow sheet, and we check the dyeing process using carbon dioxide in the bench scale. And also, I bring to this technology to the pilot plant and check, and at last we can industrialize this technique, and we obtained these good products not using toxic organic solvents. And also, we have developed a new system to multiply the DNA. This carbon dioxide can produce a very rapid polymerase chain reaction system. So we can produce, multiply the DNA using carbon dioxide. We can multiply the DNA copies more rapid. DNA multiplication principle is very simple. We use enzyme and copy the DNA. This process occurred in routine system, but we apply this system to the under the supercritical carbon dioxide system. This speed is very rapid, more than 10,000 to the routine system. Process is very simple, and this is evidence how we can obtain the DNA PCR system more rapidly than routine systems. And also, we applied this supercritical technology to the production of the external cellular matrix. External cell matrix is very important to the new medical field. So this system can produce the natural organ, and we can design for the human being. Don't use toxic organic solvent, only use supercritical carbon dioxide. And this chemical reaction, I have developed another polymerization of the polymer, only use carbon dioxide and monomers. In this system, we applied enzyme reaction to the supercritical condition. In routine system, this surfactant and lipase can only use organic solvent systems. When we use this enzymatic reaction under the supercritical condition, we can obtain the monodispersed polymer. Monodispersed polymer is very difficult to produce, but we can succeed in a huge amount of monodispersed production under the supercritical conditions. As you can see, we can apply these area. We can control the average molecule, the weight of the polymer, only controlling the pressure of the carbon dioxide. So you can easily obtain the your desired molecular weight polymer when you can control the only pressures. And also we have applied this technology to the some enzymatic reaction was obtained reaction of some chemicals. And also, this technology is very famous for me to producing a micro capsule or the nano capsule using the supercritical carbon dioxide. We have developed a new painting system. In routine system, you can use toxic oil solvents such as toluene and resin. Resin is the main component to the painting, but we displace this organic solvent instead of, we can use the carbon dioxide. When we produce the resin particle with carbon dioxide, we can obtain the micro-size resin particle. It can be used to the paint only the small heating. And also, I can show some principle how we can obtain the microparticle of the plastic from the resin. Originally, the polymer resin cannot dissolve in the porous organic solvent. The carbon dioxide cannot solve the resin, but the mixture of the two can dissolve these resins. And after the rapid desaturation, we can obtain the small particles. This is a principle how we can succeed in obtaining the microcapsule using carbon dioxide. And this is some small particles, micro-sized particles obtained from the supercritical rapid expansion systems. We applied these technologies and controlled the materials and the micro size and nano size. This product is a very good material to the some industries, and these technologies also the environmentally benign system. So this technique was called as a very good method to the SDGs. I can show some evidence how we can bringing our technology to the industry, and we succeed in the perform the SDGs goals. That is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Can you hear my voice, Dr. Kenji?
Yes, basically we can hear your voice.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Kenji, for your lecture today. So I'm inviting the participant who wish to ask. You can drop your question on the link that already provided by a committee. Okay. I would like to introduce for the second lecture today. The second lecture today, we have Dr. Maria Rosario Zigracia from University of Santo Tomas. Hello, Dr. Maria, how are you?
Hello.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maria, for your willingness to be part of GLS today. So Dr. Maria is the associate professor, and her education background in 2050 as the doctor, a graduate in Doctor of Philosophy in Science Education, major biology in DLSU. In 2001 as graduate master of education, major in school leadership in DLSU, and also graduate ambassador in Medical Tech USD. Her research interests are the environment education, science education and science literacy, biology education, and solid waste management, and also climate change studies. She is also as the membership in member of Philippine Society for the Study of Nature, associate member of National Research Center of Philippines, and member of Philippine Society of Microbiology. Dr. Maria also got the award or research recognition in 2018 as the Best Venture Proposal from University International Research Institute, in 2019 as the Outstanding Researcher in International Publication UST College of Science. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Maria to present your topic today. Thank you so much, Dr. Maria.
Thank you so much. Could you hear me?
Sure, very clear from here.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll just share my screen. So for this afternoon, we're going to have the topic sachet consumption in the Philippines, a study on its socioeconomic implications and insights. So this is our learning objective for this afternoon. And hopefully by the end of my talk, the learners would be familiar with the Filipino consumer psychographics in relation to their sachet consumption using the theory of planned behavior by Adsen. Okay. So today we will visit the short-lived life of sachets with a longer than life impact on our environment and find out quantitatively the reason why the low income and middle income groups use them. A pleasant day, my dear students, fellow researchers, and colleagues. Today, I will be presenting to you a twin pack presentation where the first study dealt with the demographics of the bottom of the pyramid, or what we call as the low-income group, and the second study will familiarize us with the psychographics of sachet consumption among low-income and middle-income groups in Metro Manila, Philippines. I would like to present my team, Drs. Ancheta Garcia and Assistant Professor Castillo. Our introduction will revolve around this Indian proverb. Only when the last tree has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught will we realize that we cannot eat money. So let us begin. Essentially, sachets got its name from the French word which means a small bag. You see, in Western countries, they create small cotton bags of spices which they place inside pots and pans of food that is being cooked. In the Philippines today and some Asian countries, what we do is we use it in our tingi, or we call it in the Philippines as tingi, where you buy small pieces or small amounts of something, or in the retail business. I remember when I was still young, before this throwaway culture in the Philippines, my mother would usually send me to the community stores to buy some vinegar, cooking oil, and frequently using recycled containers like empty bottles. Or when we buy candies or bread buns, the wrappers were cut pieces of newspaper, Manila paper, or used paper that have been folded with its edges pasted. So for the background of the study that I am presenting now, sachets are everywhere. It's actually reflecting the manufacturer's retailing strategy that are mostly observed in the ever-present community store, serving as intermediary between the large-scale retailers like supermarkets and us. The National Solid Waste Management Office in the Philippines came up with this composition of the Philippine solid waste. Excuse me. Sachets fall under the category of residuals because up to this point in time, there are yet no concrete methods to its being recycled completely. Nowadays in the Philippines, some usually grind up the sachets and incorporate it with cement in construction work. However, we must remember that plastics that make up the sachet would last longer than us and our grandchildren's grandchildren. So basically, they do not really disappear. This slide compares select Asian countries in relation to the composition of their municipal solid waste. So highlighted is that in the Philippines. So what happens to these residuals? Since they are not recycled, then there are only two destinies, that is in being incinerated or being discarded. Now, once discarded, based on one of our recently concluded studies entitled Marine Plastic Pollution in Manila Bay, a total of 9,000 tons of single-use plastics enter Manila Bay per year. And this is only coming from 5 study sites bordering the Manila Bay. And in the Philippines, there is one significant contributor to Manila Bay single-use plastic pollution, and that is the Pasig River. Pasig River actually passes through 3 major cities, Pasig, Mandaluyong, and Manila City. Its waters originate from the freshwater reservoir of Laguna Lake and from the many industries and communities living along its borders. Okay, so what is the relationship of this presentation to the topic for today, which is on SDG 11? Okay, let me bring you over to the targets of SDG 11. You'd notice that in the highlighted portion of the target, we are supposed to reduce the municipal and we are supposed to reduce the adverse per capita environmental impact of cities by noting one of the things, and that is air quality and municipal and other waste management. So why air quality? We will see later on. Okay. Now, part of the background of the study that we have conducted regarding the sachets is also the new food chain. Okay, so you'd notice that on the left, we have the microplastics. These are usually small plastics that can only be seen under the microscope or any magnifying lens, and they're the ones eaten by aquatic life, and we are the ones finally eating aquatic life. So why the emphasis on stopping microplastics entering our food chain? It is because microplastics will ultimately affect our health by affecting our endocrine system, resulting to increased death rate. Okay. And if we will go back to one of the targets of SDG 11, take note that we're supposed to reduce the number of deaths. And one of the causes of these deaths is water-related disaster. The mere presence of microplastics in water that is being eaten by our food would ultimately result to increase in the number of deaths. And the reason for this is because according to the International Pollutants Elimination Network, or IPEN, plastics not only contain, but they also leach out hazardous chemicals. And these hazardous chemicals usually disrupt our endocrine system. Our endocrine system, for the non-biology majors, are responsible for our hormones. And therefore, disruption of the hormonal system can cause not only cancer, diabetes, reproductive disorders, and neurological impairments not only of our children, but also of those who are still unborn. So, going back to our twin pack presentation, study 1 was done, actually it was done 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, and it was entitled The Influence of Demography of Filipino Consumers Towards Their Purchase Preference for Sachet Products. And we only focused on the top 3 waste-generating cities in Metro Manila, namely Quezon City, Manila, and Caloocan as sources of our data. We noted in our study that of the 1,200 respondents, 3/4 belong to the low-income group. Actually, the main objective of the study, which we nicknamed Sachet 1, was simply to investigate the influence of Filipino consumers' demography on their frequency of purchasing sachet products. So using the results of this study, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, or GAIA, who is our sponsor, in their publication entitled Sachet Economy, Big Problems in Small Packets, they published these conclusions as to why the sachet marketing in the Philippines is successful. And our study also revealed that for the users of sachets, there are three main reasons that appeared. One is sachet products are affordable, they are convenient to use, and always visible, meaning that they have a market presence. So for the next study that we did for Gaia, we nicknamed it Sachet 2. We did not only stop at the influence of demographics, we also further did investigation by utilizing AdSense theory of planned behavior. Here, several variables comprising one's psychological criteria such as belief, attitude, perceived behavioral control, willingness, and behavior for a non-sachet consumerist lifestyle were measured. Also, we wanted to determine the levels of these variables through descriptive, inferential, and structural equation modeling. So this is the research model or simulacrum that we use with the following constructs as well as the hypotheses that were derived from them. For our methods, we employ the convergent parallel mixed method design according to Creswell. This is the graphical representation of the said method. For our purposes now, we will only deal with the quantitative method. You see, the whole study is actually a mixed method design. So there is a quantitative portion and there is a qualitative portion. So quantitatively, we did a descriptive correlational study with structural equation modeling using SPSS and AMOS. Our data collection involved a total of 1,547 residents of Metro Manila and Luzon, which were collected by random convenience sampling, with an inclusion criterion of 18 years old and above. As we were still in the middle of the pandemic when the data collection was being done, data were collected online using a 2-page validated survey questionnaire in Google form. And this was fielded by our field enumerators who were actually residents of the places that were we collected from. And even though it was a virtual data collection, more importantly, we made sure that ethical considerations and practices, as well as the policy on data privacy, were strictly adhered to. So for the results of and discussion of the study, we have named the quantitative component of the study as the psychographics of sachet use. So for the low-income group, majority lived in Quezon City, females, ages 26 to 30, and are married. For the middle income group, majority are from Metro Manila, males, aged 51 to 55, and are also married. Then, in terms of their earnings or job, so for the low-income group, they are daily wage earners, and they only reach, majority of them only graduated from high school. While for the middle-income group, majority were permanent employees and are graduates of the collegiate course. Then for their salary, the low-income group are minimum wage earners. That would be around 10,000 plus a month, while the salary for the middle income group is much higher than those of the minimum age workers. Okay. However, you would note that the number of sachets that they use per week is almost the same. So majority here is 1 to 3 times per week. The same is true for the middle income group. Okay. Now, how about the usage for the sachet? So they use sachets that contain, for the low income group, majority use it for food containers, those for hygiene, and also for cooking. While the middle income group mostly use it, one is ranked for cooking, followed by household, rank number 2, and food would be rank number 3. Okay, so what is the reason for its consumption? Well, for the low-income group, they find that it is economical. It is visible in stores. If you will recall the results of the first study, and it is easy to prepare, and it's also portable. Portable means you could put it in your pocket. Let's say you want to bring with you to work coffee, then put the sachet in your pocket, and then when you reach your office, then you just mix your coffee. So it's easily transportable. Well, for the middle income group, they find that sachets provide them with the exact amount. It is economical and it is easily prepared. Okay, so for the inferential statistics, using structural equation modeling, okay, for the beliefs, the low-income group believes that the use of sachet is their normal way of life. For the middle-income group, our respondents believe that they know the bad environmental effects of these sachets. For the attitude towards sachets, the low-income group is veering towards a non-sachet lifestyle, but our middle-income group have a pro-sachet attitude. That's the reason for the difference in the emoticon. For willingness, the low-income group have the willingness for a non-use of sachets, while our middle-income group respondents are willing to address the problem of sachets, but they are not that willing to avoid the purchase of sachets. For their perceived behavioral control, by the way, perceived behavioral control is also described as self-efficacy. Both low-income group and middle-income group respondents perceive that they have the capacity to solve complex sachet problems, except that you'd notice that the values are lower, signifying that the perception of the low-income group as to their capabilities is much lesser. But for the behavior construct, the low-income group will only practices non-sachet use lifestyle, while the middle-income group respondents are for both non-sachet and sachet use lifestyle. So this table summarizes the constructs. The arrows, you notice that the arrows indicate that majority of the constructs are high for the middle income group, except for attitude. And on the other hand, it's the opposite for the low income group, where attitude is the highest. Okay, so for the structural equation modeling, recall that this is our research model. And for the results, this is for the low income group. All values obtained were significant, though the highest values were obtained in hypothesis 1 and hypothesis 2. These indicate that having a positive attitude towards sachet use improves one's willingness for a non-sachet lifestyle. Now, how about the middle income group? In the case of the middle income group, again, all values obtained were significant, but the highest values were in hypothesis 4 and 5. This indicates that they have a strong perceived behavioral control, which may improve their willingness for a non-sachet lifestyle, but not necessarily a non-sachet consumerist lifestyle, because the value of this is a little bit lower. So this one compares the results of the middle income and the low income groups. Okay, so what would be our conclusions and recommendations? For the low income group, measures must be undertaken so that their attitude or mindset are improved and thus boost their willingness for a non-sachet lifestyle. As this mindset or attitude is of the affective domain, it may be improved by education. However, for the middle income group, their willingness is not driven by the affective domain, but the cognitive domain. There's perception of their abilities. As such, it is harder to influence them because by themselves, they already think that they have the necessary know-how about a non-sachet lifestyle. So for our recommendations, actually we have submitted these recommendations to the Congress because they are already, there's already a House bill that is limiting the use of single-use plastics in the Philippines. So, but we further added that the policy of the government should intercede in the producer-consumer cycle. For the producers, they must be provided incentives so that they can come up with alternative packaging or any form of dispensing so that the Philippines could transition from a sachet economy to a more sustainable economy with extended producers' responsibility. The consumers, on the other hand, such as the middle income groups, can serve as leaders to create behavioral change through awareness within their socio-economic level. Okay, these were the references that that were used, excuse me. And again, we'd like to acknowledge Gaia for their funding of the project as well as our research center. And in the name of the UST Sachet team, thank you very much for your attention. A pleasant afternoon to everyone, and may God bless us all.
Thank you so much to Dr. Mario for your amazing lecture today.
Thank you.
Please, I'm inviting all the participants. Do not hesitate to drop your question on the link that have been provided by the committee. Okay, we are going to have the question and answer. I know that you are wondering about the first speaker and then the second speaker. Okay, so without further ado, allow me to introduce the third speaker today. Our speaker today is Assistant Professor Racquel Layco from University of Santo Tomas. Her education background now, Assistant Professor Racquel now ongoing in pursuing doctoral candidate for environmental study in Miriam College, and also has graduated in Master in Chemistry Education in University of Santo Tomas, and also graduate in Bachelor Degree Chemistry, University of Santo Tomas. Her working experience since 2007 until now, she is the assistant professor in College of Science, University of Santo Tomas, and in 2004 until 2007 as full-time professor in Chemistry Department, Amilo Aguinaldo College, and in 2001 until in 2001, she is the full-time instructor in chemistry or chemical engineering department in Technological Institute of the Philippines. Associate Professor Racquel has lessons in lesson chemist in Philippine Chemist Board and also has lesson in professional teacher in Philippine Teachers Board. Her research interests in environmental studies, second, sustainability studies, and disaster risk management. Without further ado, let's invite Associate Professor Racquel Layco. How are you?
Thank you, Ma'am Agani, for that introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Racquel. I give you time. You can now deliver your material today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. It's an honor and privilege to present the result of our research on this guest lecture series of the Sustainable Development Goals. The title of our research is Disaster Resiliency, Barangay San Vicente, Laur, Nueva Ecija, Philippines, a Case Study. My co-authors are Dr. Moises Norman Garcia, Dr. Maria Rosario Virginia Cubar Garcia, and yours truly, Assistant Professor Racquel Layco. We are from the Research Center for Social Sciences and Education and the College of Science of the University of Santo Tomas. Let me relate the study to the 11th Sustainable Development Goal, which is to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Disaster resiliency in the community is possible with sound disaster risk-informed planning and management. Communities can become incubators for innovation and drivers for sustainable development. For community disaster resiliency to be an element of sustainable development, there should be effective communication of information regarding disaster preparedness, understanding risk of disasters to the community, the use of local knowledge and resources that can help the community to be aware and prepared with disasters. Social connectedness, whether it's in the form of social media or community interaction, so that the people are informed regarding disasters. Preparation, engagement, empowerment of the most vulnerable, as well as collaboration between the national government, local government, and non-governmental organization are important for cooperation and partnership for the benefit of the community for disaster resiliency. And lastly, community should be flexible and ready for capacity building for self-organization. These are important components of disaster resilience for sustainable development. According to the United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction in 2005, disaster resilience is the degree to which individuals and communities can organize themselves to learn from past disasters and reduce the risk to future ones. The Philippines is ranked 9th in the world as the most affected country from extreme weather events in the 2020 World Risk Index. Global risks of disaster arise directly from extreme natural events such as earthquakes, typhoons, floods, and droughts. Risk is particularly high when vulnerable societies are hit by extreme natural events. According to the National Geographic in 2013, the Philippines is disaster prone because of warm ocean waters. Located just above the equator, the Philippines faces the Western Pacific without much else in the way to take the force of storms before they make landfall. Those warm equatorial waters power storm about 20 typhoons a year. Coastal homes. A lot of people live on low-lying coastal islands in the Philippines, with more than 60% of the population living in coastal zones. Deforestation. In the past typhoons, mudslides have killed many typhoon survivors in the Philippines because of hillsides denuded of trees. And ring of fire. On top of everything else, the Philippines rests on the Pacific earthquake and volcano ring of fire. Underdevelopment. The young and poverty-stricken population of the Philippines has increasingly shifted to coastal regions where rapidly constructed housing and inadequate evacuation plans may have played a role in many disasters. Barangay San Vicente in Laur, Nueva Ecija, Philippines, which is located at the foot of Sierra Madre mountain range, experienced flash floods and landslide during the onslaught of the tropical cyclone with international name Copo, or locally known as Lando, in 2020, according to NDRRMC in 2020. Typhoon Lando was a powerful and devastating earthquake disturbance that struck Luzon in October 2015. According to the local residents, it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that they will never forget because of the struggles and miseries such as health and socio-economic concerns that they have to endure during and after the disastrous event, on top of the different factors and variables that could affect the survival of the residents is disaster resiliency. The study investigates how the citizens of Barangay San Vicente managed to rise up from the disaster, such as flash floods and landslide, and recover their lost socio-economic existence in the community. Disaster resiliency in this rural context is influenced by the residents' perception of disaster, awareness and preparedness, community collectivism, and political pressure. The research provides significant information and a working model. Significance of the study. The research provides significant information and a working model as to how a rural barangay like San Vicente in Laur, Nueva Ecija survive as a community in terms of resiliency during and after a natural disaster such as flash flood and landslide. Objective of the study. The overall aim of the study is to investigate the factors that influence the residents' disaster resiliency on past and future disaster, focusing on demography, perception of disaster, disaster awareness and preparedness, collectivism, and political pressure. The hypothesized model of the study and the research hypothesis. Demography, perception of disaster, awareness and preparedness, collectivism, and political pressure significantly influence resiliency on past and future disaster. This is a method. This is a quantitative, descriptive, correlational study using purposive sampling of household heads participated by 18 years old and above residents of Barangay San Vicente, Laur, Nueva Ecija in the Philippines. A total of 331 respondents accomplished the questionnaires. For the demographic variables, majority of the respondents are 41 to 45 years old and male. For the civil status, most of the respondents are married, daily wage earner, secondary school graduates, and as well as below minimum wage. According to a study done by Street Needs and Pat in 2013, investments in primary and secondary education is the best effective strategy to manage the effects of natural disasters. And according to Katik in 2017, higher education decreases vulnerability to disaster. For house ownership, majority of the respondents are owners of houses, and as well as the households have at least majority of the household have at least 4 members. House ownership increases disaster resilience according to Katik in 2017. And according to Yarnall et al. In 2016, big families increase vulnerability during disasters. And for number of child less than 7 years old and below, okay, most of the household have none, but at least 1 of at least one household, for 29.9% of the household have at least one child below 7 years old. And for elderly, okay, at least 16.1% of the respondents have an elderly in the household. So children's vulnerability rises with decrease in age, according to Alam in 2017, and according to Benson in 2006. An elderly is more vulnerable to disaster given their slow movement, and usually they already have comorbidities. Perception of disaster, the possibility of the disaster. The highest mean is for floods and as well as for strong typhoon, and 50.50% are positive. That they are very definite that there is still a possibility of disaster that will happen within the community. And for strong typhoon, 50.80% of the respondents are very definite about the possibility of disaster in the community. And for the lowest score, or for the lowest mean, it's 3.06 for earthquake, which is 78.7% are very definite that it will happen in the future. The possibility of disaster is very high according to the result, according to the respondents, because of their experience of Typhoon Lando in 2015. Typhoon Lando in 2015 brought the worst flood in the lifetime to the people of Nueva Ecija. And according to Bolentino et al. In 2018, most Filipinos classified typhoons as most likely to affect them of all the natural disasters. The perception of disaster, their worriedness regarding the given disasters. The highest means for strong typhoon followed by floods. And around 61.80% are very worried about floods, and as well as 65.10% are very worried about strong typhoon. And the lowest mean is for drought, and they are still worried about the possibility of drought in the community. So communities' fear on disaster, according to Sue in 2015, is amplified by the familiarity of a catastrophic floods and typhoon. And this is due, of course, the result is due to the familiarity of the respondents to a catastrophic typhoon and as well as flood. Disaster awareness and preparedness, information about disaster management. The highest mean is 2 is for floods, followed by strong typhoon. Also, there is also high in terms of awareness and preparedness for flood, and as well as high preparedness for strong typhoon. And the lowest, again, is for drought. Disaster awareness and preparedness, preparation of emergency supplies for disaster. The highest mean is for emergency light as well as sanitation, hygiene and sanitation. And they are very prepared in terms of the emergency light and as well as hygiene and sanitation at 79.9 and as well as 78.4 for their preparation. And the lowest is their preparation for evacuation plan. Filipinos, according to Valentino et al. In 2018, Filipinos' experience with past disaster is their reason of being prepared for future. And likewise, they are interested in disaster preparedness training, since most of them have not participated in any disaster risk reduction training. Disaster awareness and preparedness, ways of receiving information regarding disaster. The highest percentage is for the use of television, followed by cell phone, and lastly, the use of newspaper. According to the result of the research coincides with the result of the research by Lalo in 2020, that 69% or 45.8 million adult Filipinos use television as a principal source of news. According to Khan et al. In 2017, effective communication of information and knowledge is critical in assisting vulnerable communities as part of disaster preparedness. The highest mean for this disaster awareness and preparedness, government and non-governmental groups involved in the preparation of disaster management plan in the community. The highest percentage is for the LGU, the local government unit, followed by the national government and the non-governmental organization. And the least is for the United Nations. According to Bolentini et al., so the result of the study also coincides with the result of the study of Bolentino et al. In 2018. Most Filipinos have received assistance from the local government unit during and after a disaster. Disaster awareness and preparedness, food, health, and related issues that may affect the community during disaster. The highest percentage for this is food scarcity, followed by water scarcity, and the least is for hospital destroyed. The result of the study also coincides with the study of Islam and Ahmed in 2017. Food security is at risk after a natural disaster, since disaster damages agricultural products. Disaster awareness and preparedness, the prepared method to receive information about disaster management. The most prepared method to receive disaster management information is through television, followed by cell phone, and last, email. Most Filipinos receive their main source of news from television, according to study by Bolentino et al. In 2018. And of course, the least would be through email, since they still have to access the internet in order to get email. Community and family collectivism. So the highest mean is for it is important that parents and their children are together, especially in times of disaster and calamity. Followed by, it is my duty to take care of my family, even if I have to sacrifice the things that I want. And also, they strongly agree that this should be a quality within the family. So 56.50% strongly agree, 54.70% strongly agree. And of course, the lowest mean is for I enjoy spending time with my community members at 2.86. The result shows that the respondents are mostly family-oriented rather than community-oriented. This also coincides, the result also coincides with the study of Bolentino et al. In 2018. A society's disaster resilience can be assessed by the amount of social cohesion and collectiveness or collectivism within the community. Next is disaster resilience, sources of livelihood. For the last 1 year, sources of livelihood. During and after a disaster, sources of livelihood. The sources of livelihood for the Filipinos, they are mostly doing farming and animal raising, and the lowest mean or lowest percentage is mining and quarrying. So according to the study done by Bolentino et al. In 2018, many Filipino sources of income came from farming. And of course, the least percentage here is mining quarrying because San Vicente, Lower Nueva Ecija is an agricultural place. So it also, according to Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in 2019, the importance of disaster awareness and preparedness in the agricultural setting in the community is should be given focus on. Disaster resilience. Respondents who have asked financial and food assistance during the disaster in 2015, most of the respondents have asked financial as well as food assistance from their community members. Disaster resilience, individual groups that provided financial and food assistance during the disaster in 2015, the highest percentage for the LGU, so therefore the highest assistance was given by the LGU, followed by a relative in the community and non-relative outside the community. So the result coincide with the 14th Congress of the Philippines that indeed the local government unit in the community of Laur is indeed doing its role as a primary disaster assistance agency. Disaster resilience. Reasons we're asking financial and food assistance. Their primary reason that they ask financial assistance from the groups that was mentioned, that's what were mentioned a while ago, is that have more resources in life, followed by not affected by disaster, and the last and the lowest percentages have previously asked assistance from these people. Resiliency and past disaster during Typhoon Lando in 2015. Majority feels that they can still recover, but with little difficulty. And the lowest percentage is we can't recover anymore. According to Ignacio in 2010, as Filipinos adjusting mechanisms so the result of the study coincides also with the study of Ignacio in 2010. As Filipinos adjusting mechanism to deal with disaster grow and develop, their disaster resiliency also arises. Resiliency on future disaster, the highest percentage can still recover but with little difficulty. This also coincide with the study of Bolentino et al. In 2018. Many Filipinos felt that they would have difficulty recovering from the disaster if it were to happen in the near future. And according to the Disaster Risk Education, Victoria in 2021, disaster resilience can be developed through knowledge, awareness, preparedness, understanding, and training related to disaster risk reduction. How about political influence? How the local government unit of San Vicente, Laur, Nueva Ecija, provided help to the local community. So the highest means for the local government unit provides early warning for upcoming typhoons and disasters. They are very much aware that the local government unit indeed provided early warning for typhoons and disasters at 92%, followed by provides adequate protection. So the local government unit provides adequate protections such as building evacuation centers and dike. So the lowest mean is for accepts feedback and blame for failure to respond. This is the lowest mean for political influence of the local government unit, accepts feedback and blame for failure to respond, and as well as provides information about the nation proceeds from national agencies and foreign organizations. The result of the study coincide with the 14th Congress of the Philippines with the RA 101 that indeed the local government units are the lead in community disaster. And according to Bolentino et al., and this coincide with the result of the study that most Filipino believe that LGU should assist in the preparation and in the aftermath of a disaster. The table shows the multiple regression of age, gender, civil status, job, education, salary, type of house ownership, number of house members, number of children and elders with resiliency on past disaster. The research reveals that age, gender, and house ownership negatively predicted resiliency on past disaster, whereas the rest of the variables have non-significant effect on resiliency on past disaster. As the resident's age increases by a year, resiliency on past disaster decreases by 0.071. Hence, the older the respondents, the lesser the resiliency on past disaster. While gender increases by 1, resiliency on past disaster decreases by 0.287. Thus, female is less resilient on past disaster. Moreover, the greater the female population, the lesser the resiliency on past disaster of the community. In the case of house ownership, as it increases by 1, resiliency on past disaster decreases by 0.1 3.4. That is, as the residents become a tenant or share the house, the resiliency on past disaster decreases. Thus, house ownership increases resiliency. In the case of residents, in the case of the residents' fear of flood, as it increases by 1, resiliency in past disaster increases by 508. Hence, as the fear of floods increases, the resiliency on past disaster increases. The table shows the multiple regression of the perception of disaster, the possibility of the earthquake, floods, drought, strong typhoon, and landslide with resiliency and past disaster. Perception of the possibility of floods positively predicted resiliency on past disaster, while perception of the rest of the disaster have non-significant effect on resiliency on past disaster. As the residents' perception of the possibility of floods increases by 1, resiliency in past disaster increases by 0.325. The perception of the possibility of floods increases resiliency on past disaster. The table shows the multiple regression of the perception of disaster, worriedness on earthquake, floods, drought, strong typhoon, and landslide with resiliency on past disaster. The research shows the fear of floods positively predicted resiliency on past disaster, while the rest of the disasters have non-significant effect on resiliency on past disaster. In the case of the residents' fear of floods, as increases by 1, resiliency on past disaster increases by 0.508. Hence, as the fear of floods increases, resiliency on past disaster increases. The table shows the multiple regression of the disaster awareness and preparedness, disaster management of earthquake, floods, drought, strong typhoon, and landslide with resiliency on future disaster. The findings reveal that information about disaster management and strong typhoon negatively predicted resiliency on past disaster. However, information about disaster management on the rest of the disaster have non-significant effect on resiliency on past disaster. As the residents' information about disaster management and strong typhoon increases by 1, resiliency on past disaster decreases by 0.152. Low resiliency on past disaster may be due to the reduced recovery from the previous disasters. The table shows the multiple regression of disaster awareness and preparedness, preparation of emergency supply variables with resiliency on past disaster. The research reveals that batteries and cell phone with power banks negatively predicted resiliency in past disaster, and the rest of the variables have non-significant effect on resiliency in past disaster. As the residents' preparation of batteries and cell phones with power banks increases by 1, resiliency on past disaster decreases by 0.190. Thus, low resiliency on past disaster may be affected by non-preparation of batteries and cell phone with power banks. The table shows the multiple regression of disaster awareness and preparedness, preparation of emergency supply variables with resiliency on future disaster. The findings revealed that preparation of batteries and cell phone with power banks and money for spending positively predicted resiliency on future disaster, and the rest of the variables have non-significant effect on the future disaster. As the residents' preparation of batteries and cell phone with power bank increases by 1, resilience in future disaster increases by 0.14. While residents' preparation money for spending increases by 1, resiliency on future disaster increases by 0.11. As a result, resiliency in future disaster increases when batteries and cell phone with power banks and money that are ready for emergency use. The table shows the multiple regression of community and family collectivism with resiliency and future disaster. The findings reveal that community collectivism, I'm happy as I work with my community members, negatively predicted resiliency on future disaster, whereas the rest of the variables have non-significant effect on the resiliency on future disaster. Also, when the residents' community collectivism increases by 1, resiliency on past disaster decreases by 0.196. The result shows that the residents are more family-oriented, and this could explain their low resiliency when dealing with the community members. Conclusion: age, gender, type of house ownership, perception of disaster, disaster awareness and preparedness affect resiliency on past disaster. Resiliency on future disaster affects the community collectivism and disaster awareness and preparedness. Political pressure by the local government unit has not affected the resiliency on past and future disaster. Recommendations: the residents' disaster resiliency in the community can be enhanced by the national government and the local government unit by strengthening the implementation of the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction Management Act of 2010. The LGU should prioritize disaster preparedness. This is possible by giving extensive seminars and trainings and regarding disaster awareness and preparedness. The Department of Education should also play a great role in the implementation of disaster resiliency in the community. It is also important to make disaster risk reduction topics comprehensive, such as it could be integrated in the different courses in the primary and secondary education. These are my references. I would like to acknowledge the University of Santo Tomas and the University of Santo Tomas Research Center for Social Sciences and Education for making this study possible. Let me end the presentation with a quote: "We cannot stop the natural disasters, but we can arm ourselves with knowledge, so many lives would have to be lost if there was enough disaster preparedness." Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much to Assistant Professor Racquel Layco. Okay, I would like to invite the participant to drop your question and the link that have been provided by the committee, and also you can ask directly using the feature, the raise hand feature, or you can ask at the chat box. Thank you. Okay, today our speaker today, Professor Kenji and Dr. Maria. Are you still here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. So I have received some question in the chat in the link. So allow me to read some question here. The first one, the question goes to Dr. Maria. From the participant here, I didn't mention the names, I just mentioned the question. What do you think about the political influence and structural poverty as the external factor to the SEM? To Dr. Maria.
Kindly repeat the question. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. What do you think about the political influence and structural poverty as the external factor?
That is one of the things that I do not want to add in any research. Unfortunately, but in the Philippines, it actually plays an important role because one of the things that we have to do prior to any research work in any part of the Philippines is you have to have permission from the existing local government unit. However, and that's the reason why during this, because here in the Philippines, we have this campaign period now. We are looking for a new president, a new vice president, and then later on, I think it would be next month, we'll be looking for the sets of local government units. So at this point in time, we have stopped data collection because we do not want to be mistaken as people who are actually campaigning for a specific, what do you call this, candidate. Okay, so now if we're going to put that, Personally, I don't think politics should be a factor to be considered when it comes to the mind frame of a person in relation to waste. Because, for example, I am supporting a particular administration, but I do not really feel good about the local, what to call this, the policies of that particular local government unit in relation to the his way of managing waste. Okay, but I am under that person. So definitely, if I will be the respondent, I would not be giving a truthful answer because it may mean my job. So that's one of the reasons why in our study, in most of the studies that we do, we stay away from politics. So we are just after environmental care. We don't really care who is seated at the level of the government. If they are environmentalists, well and good, because we'll have no difficulty in asking permission in order to do that. So I hope I have answered the question.
Yeah, sure, Dr. Maria. Thank you so much. Another question for you, Dr. Maria.
I hope I am not the top notcher of today.
No, okay. So the first, I will give you the question goes to Dr. Maria, and then I will go to the next speaker, Prof. Kenji, and also, as I said, Professor Racquel Layco. And then the second question for Dr. Maria is the advantage and disadvantage of SASAT marketing. Dr. Maria, could you explain that, the advantage and disadvantage?
Could you kindly repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So what is the advantage and disadvantages of SASAT marketing?
Okay. I'll start with the disadvantage first because I personally do not see any advantage. Okay. One thing is, let's say you have a sachet packaging. It contains around 5 grams of the material that you want. Let's say it's a 3-in-1 coffee preparation. So that's made of plastic. It's not just one type of plastic because sachets are made up of several layers of different kinds of plastics. Okay? So in several seconds, you open the sachet. Then you draw out the contents. And then after that, after you have drunk your coffee or after you have eaten what is in the packaging, and you have already visited the comfort room and you have already removed what you have eaten, you still have the packaging. Okay? But there is a solution to that. Okay? And that is what I mentioned earlier. One of the things that the producers can do is to come up with an alternative system. Meaning, the poor people, those in the low income groups, could still buy that product. Okay? But it's not going to be packaged in plastics. It could be packaged in paper, or it could be, if it's a liquid, there should be a dispensing machine. So the amount is the same. Actually, you remove the price of the plastic. You see, I'm a mother. My children who are already old, they already have their own families. When they were young, they do not want to accompany me to the grocery because I usually bring a calculator and I compute. If this is the product in plastic, I compare it with the product in bottles per milliliter. And if I see that the price is just a small amount, I would rather choose the one in a refillable bottle or in a recyclable bottle because I'm concerned with the container, with the plastic packaging. Because even if it's, I mentioned also, the plastic would remain even if it's already beyond your grandchildren's time. It would take millions of years before the plastics would be dissolved. And as it is degrading, it's becoming part of our body. It's already, I forgot to mention earlier, The plastic is already in the air. We're already inhaling it. We're already eating it. So when will we stop? So I do not find any advantage unless the packaging is in paper or in a product that can be, that is degradable. Let's say it's paper and then inside you have your beeswax. Just to make it oil, what do you call that? Oil repellent. But otherwise, if it's in plastic, sorry, there is no advantage to the use of sachets, personally. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Maria. I do agree what you mentioned that there is no advantage using the plastic resin that you already mentioned, that we already breathe with the plastic in the air, we already eat the plastic in our body. But maybe I would like to continue the previous question. Do you think that we can start not using plastic in the future, Dr. Maria? Because everywhere I can see everywhere in plastic, bottled water in plastic, food packaging in plastic, Dr. Maria. Thank you.
Yes.
That's my question. Yeah.
Okay, it's actually your question. Sorry. So yes, there is still the future. I remain optimistic that we'll be finding ways, because there's such a thing as necessity is the mother of invention. So if we feel that there are already many cases, actually there are already many cases of cancer, not only in children, but also in adults. I remember when I was young, only the old people had cancer. Now, even the young ones have cancer. So where could it be coming from? It's coming from our environment. And one of those that are contributing to this is our plastic packaging. There's still a way to find a solution for that. There's still time, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, Dr. Maria. Thank you so much. I hope that the previous question has, the participant that asked for the question is clear for you. Thank you so much, Dr. Maria. And then the next question, it will go to Professor Kenji from one of the students here. Asked about, you stated earlier that Fukuoka is surrounded by the sea. So, but why Fukuoka experienced shortage of clean water? Okay, do you need me to repeat the question, Professor Kenji? Okay. Okay, you stated earlier that Fukuoka is surrounded by the sea, but why Fukuoka experienced shortage of clean water? That's the question from one of the student here. Thank you.
Yeah. So we should consider about the amount of the fresh water consumed by person. In the high level life in Fukuoka city, the many persons consume the huge amount of fresh water. So in Japan, we can use fresh water. Japan have many heavy rain or the much wide area. So we can use a huge amount of fresh water on the land. But the population in the Fukuoka city is grows and grows. And one person use a huge amount of water. So we need more fresh water from the sea water. Because as you mentioned about Fukuoka city located in the seashore, so we have a huge area of the seashores, and we can use seawater. So we have developed the new technology to obtaining fresh water from the seawater. Because human being cannot use seawater, the desalinization is very important. So our Japanese developed the new technology to obtaining fresh water from the seawater. Is it enough answer for the students?
Yes, Professor Kenji, thank you so much. Yeah, there's a student here who would like to ask directly to our speakers today, please you can raise your hand.
What are you meaning?
There's once a student, Professor Kenji, want to ask directly.
Yeah, it's okay. Anytime is okay.
Good evening. May I ask a question to Mistress Maria Rosario? Good evening, Mistress Maria Rosario.
Hi.
Okay. So your talks was about sachet and plastic problems, right?
Yes.
Yes. So the question is that the problem in Southeast Asia is that we use lots of plastic bags, sachets, etc. And the thing is that these wastes are just thrown, wasted into the ocean, or just burned into air, or just dumped without doing anything else. And if we see Japan, they use a lot of plastics everywhere, bottles, bags. But their recycling is so efficient that no waste thrown into oceans. So the question is increasing the number of recycling centers would solve these problems without having to reduce the plastic consumptions.
Thank you for the question. May I ask Dr. Kenji a question because I have not been to Japan? In relation to Sir Ahmad's question, Dr. Kenji, could you kindly answer my question, please? Hello.
Yeah.
I
Hello.
would just like to ask a question because he mentioned Japan as having one of the best recycling centers. May I know how Japan recycles its waste?
Yeah, Japan has enough recycling site, and we can use a recycling system. And also, scientists in Japan already developed the new technology for the biodegradable polymer. It's a very good material for all the human being. And these biodegradable polymer can already produced in Thailand or any other countries, also including Japan. So, and we have enough system for the recycling of polymer, and also we developed the biodegradable polymer system. This method is very important for all the human beings. So we can develop the new technology, and Japan support is all over the world. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'd like to answer Sir Ahmad's question. Now, your question is, could we solve the problem in the Philippines if we have recycling facilities? Number one, I do not think so, because although we have a law, and in that law, you are supposed to only bring out your trash, and the trash is supposed to be segregated. You see, more than 50% of the trash of every household is actually biodegradable. So the only problems are those that are left behind. Those that are recyclables, and something like 15% are the residuals. And this would include the single-use plastics. So many stores in the Philippines are already using cups made of paper. That is something recyclable because it's paper. And then in terms of packaging, rather than using, we call it a sando bag because it looks like a sando. If you are familiar with, how do they call it? It's an undershirt. The same thing used by basketball players. So in the Philippines, we have plastic bags that look like that. That's why it's called sando bag. Because the undershirt or the shirt used by basketball players, we call it as sando. Okay. So rather than using sando bags, they have encouraged the use of eco bags. But unfortunately, eco bags in the Philippines, most of them, especially the leading supermarket, the leading mall owner that we have here, is using plastic as its bags. And they call it oxo-degradable. For a chemistry student, Oxidegradable means the packaging is broken down by oxygen gas. So it's going to be broken down into smaller pieces. So ultimately, it will become microplastic. Other mall owners or big department store owners would actually encourage the use of paper bags. And these paper bags could be reused. The same for delivery of food products. So we do not really need much recycling centers. What we need is discipline. Discipline within every home. Because if you, number one, process more than 50% of your trash, you only bring out less than 50%. And then for the recyclable materials like bottles, that could be sold or that could be washed and reused. So your only problem actually, which you are going to give the government, is the remaining 15%. But if you do not do your own share as a citizen of the country, then you cannot, the country would not really prosper. So though we are considered as a third world country, because Japan is considered as first world, the Philippines is considered as a third world. So we do not have, number one, we don't have much money for recycling facilities. But if every Filipino is going to segregate the waste before they are brought out of their own homes, then the government will not have much need for these big facilities. I hope I satisfied Sir Ahmad's. Is it your name, Ahmad?
Yeah, my name is Ahmed. So
Okay.
yeah, in conclusion, the solution would be the disciplined.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Like separating the trash, the rubbish into separate trash bins, right?
Yes.
I think that your answered my question very well. Thank you so much, Mr. Ismaria.
Thank you so much too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Maria, for answering Ahmed's question. Allow me to read next question that goes to Professor Kenji. Yeah, to the Professor Kenji, that's one of the participants here that asking. Here the question, we have seen that resin is being used to resolve the environmental problem in chemical industry. The question is how much resin can perform as the semi-permeable membrane in reverse osmosis.
So, first of all, I must explain about the power of the chemical engineer. Because in something being a global point, the chemistry or the chemical materials thought about the very dangerous materials. So the as an environmental concept, the chemicals in general look like toxic. But chemical engineer already protect the toxicity or the some disease for the environment. We can protect the leak or the pollution of some material to the environment. This protecting production technique is very important. So the chemical engineer can produce a very good technique to save the environment. So today I can show some example that have already I can develop in Japan, but we want to deliver these good technique to all over the world because we can save the environment using a high pressure technique. So I can today I bring these technique. Is this enough answer for the some students? Is okay? No?
Yeah,
So sorry.
Yes, thank you, Prof. Kenji. We are well received, well accepted your answer. Thank you very much, Prof. Kenji.
Thank you.
And for Miss Fifi, hello, you still with us, Miss Fifi? Okay, so apparently Miss Fifi is disconnected, so I will substitute Fifi temporarily. So I will continue to read the question. The next question is for Assistant Professor Racquel Layco.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hello. The question
Hello,
will
yes.
be, this is the question for one of our students. So Dr. Layco, Assistant Professor Layco, you stated earlier that the reducing recovery regarding previous disaster affects resiliency in facing the future disaster. In your opinion, what are suggestions or advancements that we need to achieve to make a good disaster management?
I think the strategies that could be adopted by the community is to strengthen training, okay, regarding disaster awareness, as well as training regarding their capacity building, training in such a way that they would know what they would do if a disaster will happen, and as well as there should be a plan within the community of what the community will do if ever a disaster will happen within the community.
I see. Thank you very much for your answer, Assistant Professor Racquel Layco. And now, our moderator, Fifi, has come back again to our session. Hello, Fifi. Please continue the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Irma. And also, I'm so sorry that I was out from the Zoom. There's trouble with my laptop. So where was it, Miss Irma?
Yes, the previous question is for Assistant Professor Dr. Layco. Miss Fifi, you may proceed to the next question. Thank you very much.
Okay, so for the next question to me, to Associate Professor Racquel, you stated earlier that reduce recovery. Is that the next question?
Yes, ma'am. I already answered the question.
Yes. Thank you very much. Please proceed to the next question.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Racquel. Next question that goes to Dr. Maria. Hello, Dr. Maria. Yeah. For the next question to Dr. Maria is how. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is my sound audible? Okay, Dr. Maria. How we as student can persuade or increase willingness in low-income and high-income people to embrace a non-SASET lifestyle?
For the low-income groups, if we're going to base it in our study, for the low-income, I do not know if it's possible to compare Filipinos with other Southeast Asian countries. Okay, but based on our study, if we are talking about the low-income group, what they need is simply, it's okay for them if there are no sachets. What is just important is there is an alternative delivery system. And this alternative delivery system would require them to pay the same amount that they pay for sachets. So let us say a 1 pack of coffee 3-in-1. We have coffee, creamer, and sugar. Do you have something like that in Indonesia?
We do have it, Dr. Maria.
Okay. So let us say in the Philippines, although I'm not familiar with the cost, let us say it is 5 pesos. So for the low income group, if they are going to, buy the same product without sachets, then they have to be provided alternative delivery system. Meaning, either you package the coffee mix in paper so that it would be more environment friendly, or you could, I hope somebody later on, preferably I think it's developed by engineering students, they could come up with a delivery system wherein you just press a button and then the powder would come out. So it's already in powder form. And the same thing, the same amount would be paid by the low-income group. Now, based on our results with the middle-income group, although it was not mentioned in my presentation because it is only on the qualitative component, because based on our results with the middle-income group, they know the bad effects of sachet. However, they do not have the right attitude. Okay, they know that they believe that they can help in the problem, but they don't have the right attitude. And we found out in our qualitative component of the study, because we interviewed these people, and based on our results, for them, the use of sachets is actually for convenience. Because they don't have, they pay the same amount as the low-income group, but for them, time is more important. So let us say you're going to wash your clothes. So rather than buying a big pack and then you scoop out the contents, that would take time, and sometimes your scoop would be irregular. It could be flattened, it could be like a mountain, and therefore the amount that you are dispensing in your washer is not the same. So why not simply use, especially if it's in liquid form, or let's say we're talking about conditioners. Isn't it? It's so hard to scoop out or measure out liquids. But if it is in sachets, you simply tear it off, pour it out, it's done. Because for the middle class or for the middle income group, time is of the essence. So if we are going to, that is one of the things that we have to solve for the middle income group. Because majority of them have high educational attainment. So it's really so hard to modify their way of thinking. So, but if you are able to change one or two, then they could serve as leaders for the others. Because they have because they are educated, they also have very high self-efficacy. They believe that they know what they're supposed to do. So I hope I have satisfied the person who asked the question.
Yes,
Thank you.
I have Dr. Maria. That's very clear and detailed for answering the question. And
Thank you.
then last but not least, we have the question to Professor Kenji. Yeah. The question is, how is the cost of obtaining fresh drinkable water from desalination plant compared to a normal water treatment? Is there a chance for the use of desalination plants to become more widespread?
Yeah, I can show some evidence that we can produce the fresh water from the seawater. The quality of that fresh water is very equal to the natural water. So the concentration of the impurity is very close. And this water is very safety for the human being. So the Fukuoka city person already use this produced the fresh water from the seawater as fresh water. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Kenji. Okay, maybe I would like to give one chance to the participant. You can ask directly or through the chat box. I think that was the last question from the participant. Please, to the participant, give applause to our excellent speakers today using the clap reaction that on the Zoom. Dear participant, don't forget that the assessment of TWIL submission that what I learned should be submitted by March 18, close at 4 at GMT 7, and the second TWIL should be submitted by March 31st, 2022. The worksheet can be found through the link that provided by the committee, and also please submit your worksheet through the link bit.ly/GLS_TWIL. Thank you and happy SDGs learning. I believe this event will inspire us to start a small step to achieve affordable energy and clean energy and prevent climate change. Before we close,
Okay, so probably Ms. Vivi facing any impediments in her signal. Hello, Ms. Vivi, are you still there? Hello.
Hello, can you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Please proceed, Ms. Vivi. Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry, Miss Tias, but actually my laptop is, shut down, but I can hear your voice, but I cannot see you all here from my laptop.
It's okay, Ms. Vivi, you may proceed to our, hello, Ms. Vivi. Okay, so I will take from Ms. Vivi. So we are proceeding to our certificate awarding to our honorable speakers. Let me share my screen. And the first certificate is awarded to Thank you very much, Dr. Maria Rosario Vickers Gracia. We will send the soft file and the hard file of the certificate to the your postal address. Thank you very much. And the third certificate is awarded to Assistant Professor Racquel C. Layco. Thank you very much, also Assistant Professor Racquel Layco, for your also valuable lecture in today's guest lecture series. And now, next week, don't forget for participants, we are still having a GLS on SDGs. The topic is SDGs 17, Partnership for the Goals, which will be delivered by Dr. Maria Cecilia Fasano from Instituto de Biotecnología de Misiones, Argentina. The topic is to be confirmed, and we will confirm it soon to you. And also next week on Wednesday, we still have the SDG 17, Partnership for the Goal, which will be delivered by Ms. Jayani K. Ratnayaka from University College of Ratmalana, Sri Lanka. The topic will be Public-Private Partnership for Sustainable Development. So thank you very much to our honorable speaker once again, and also our participants in joining this guest lecture series. Thank you very much. And don't forget to follow our social media at Instagram, ITS International Office, and also Facebook, facebook.com/IOITS, and also line, email, and also YouTube channel. Thank you very much. And we will see you again next week. GLS on SDGs. We'll be back next week. See you. See you. Thank you, Prof. Mishima, thank you very much. Dr. Maria Rosario, thank you very much. And Ms. Racquel Layco, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. And also participants, don't forget to submit your TWIL assignment, which will be half deadline in 18 March 2022. And the second TWIL will be closed by 31st March 2022. So thank you very much for your participation today. We have received a lot of questions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I will end the session.